Hi folks, this is Jen Espinosa-Goswami. I'm joining you live from my page at Be Weightless. If you see this video in front of you and you have not liked my page yet, what are you waiting for? Now is your sign, your chance, your opportunity to do so. By the way, I do videos like this every other day lately or weekly, just depending on what my schedule looks like. So please make sure to like my page. Today I'm coming to you to talk about the 4 Tendencies, which is a quiz and idea that was created by Gretchen Rubin. You may have heard of Gretchen because she's been around for quite a while. She's a best-selling author. She, I think her first book or maybe her second book was called Happier or Better Than Before, which is all about her project to get happier as a work-at-home mom and some of the challenges and targets she set for herself over the course of the next, can't remember if it was a year or not. I read that book. I loved it. And then she came out with Better Than Before, which is all about how to improve yourself one little bit at a time. As a health coach, I'm super interested in these types of topics, how people motivate themselves, and that was just the perfect book. So when she launched Better Than Before, which is now several years old, she came out with a quiz, which is called the 4 Tendencies Quiz. And this quiz is one of those assessments where you're like, it's pretty simple to take. There's not a lot of questions involved, and it doesn't type you. It more tells you where your motivations lie. And when I'm having an assessment with a potential client, we tend to talk about, you know, how we're motivated and how we really tap into our intrinsic motivation. So this quiz is a really good way for you to determine what really fires you up and what lights you up. It's a fantastic quiz to take to learn that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what the quiz does, what the different tendencies are. There are 4 of them, so we know there are 4 tendencies. I'll share a little bit about what my tendency is, and most importantly, whether I'm a good fit for you as a health coach based on what your tendency is. So there will be a little bit of interaction here, and I love to hear from you. So if you're popping on live, please say hi in the comments so I can see who's joining me. So Gretchen Rubin, I'm a big fan of hers, and I've read several of her books. And recently I purchased her 4 Tendencies book. She actually designed a book after she came up with this quiz, because her book, Better Than Before, glossed over the basics of what the tendencies are, and it seemed to focus heavily on the upholder tendency, which is her own personal tendency. Let's get to the basics. What are the 4 tendencies? There's upholder, which in a nutshell, you fulfill not just your inner expectations of goals you set for yourself, but you also fulfill outer expectations. So basically, upholders are the rule followers, right? If there's a plan, if there's a checklist, if there's an organization list, these are the people who get most motivated by that. And they're also folks who are very strongly personally motivated to do things. So if they say, I'm going to do this, once they've made that commitment to do it, it's very easy for them to follow through because they've made the decision and they've tapped into their internal motivation. And they also tend to establish systems, and everyone's system is different, but they establish systems that allow them to fulfill that expectation. So they're motivated from both within and without. Those are the upholders. By the way, if you want to see what tendency you are, I popped the link for the quiz above this video. So make sure to click on that and share with me what you came up with. I love to hear what my folks in my community are in terms of their tendencies. What is the second tendency? And this is in no particular order, by the way, and neither one is more important than the other. The second tendency is the questioner. Hello, I'm a questioner. I'm a questioner. I always say, why? I need to know why. This is super important for me, and this is one of the reasons why I became a health coach, because I had a lot of advice thrown at me, and being the typical questioner I am, I only took upon that advice that made sense to me. So as you would expect to know, a questioner is someone who only fulfills the outer expectations that make sense to them internally. So is more concerned with meeting internal expectations, which is one of the reasons why I was able to lose 100 pounds, because I had made a commitment to myself. That doesn't mean that I knew specifically how I was going to do it or what I was going to do. What it meant was I had determined I was not going to turn back. And this is something that turns up a lot for questioners, at least me personally. Once I step away from a situation, a person, a place, that's it. I've walked away from it. I don't look back and say, what if, and then all those sorts of things. No, I've finished my need for that particular thing and I've moved on. That may not be specific to questioner, but it's one that shows up in my particular form of questioner. So a questioner is someone who doesn't necessarily do exactly what the rules say unless those rules make sense to them individually. As if you live with a questioner, you may be thinking already, oh my God, that's totally my partner, or oh my God, that's totally my kid. Then yeah, you may be like, how on earth do I deal with this person who questions every single thing I do? By the way, I've been told that I am combative. I've been told that I'm blunt. I've been told that I kind of like put people through the a lot of questions, because I do. If someone says something or introduces an idea to me, the first thing I do is I play devil's advocate. Okay, so what if this? Okay, what if that? I run through scenarios, and that's kind of how it shows up for me as a questioner. Yay! Let me know below this video if you are a questioner. Make sure to take the quiz that's popped on the link above here. Now, what's the third tendency? The third tendency is obliger. And you may not be surprised by this, but obligers make up the greatest population of people who have since taken this quiz from Gretchen Rubin. What does an obliger look like? Not only do they meet outer expectations and have a hard time fulfilling their inner expectations. So these are the people who will tell you, I have a really hard time staying accountable. And they can get very frustrated because if they personally set a goal for themselves, they have a really, really hard time meeting that goal unless there's some sort of external accountability. So these are the people who need to check in regularly with someone. These are the people who may not develop a fitness schedule unless they're going to a gym and checking in with a regular trainer or a class. These are the people who need someone to remind them of what they had set out to do because they find it hard to meet their own expectations, their inner expectations. These are also people who are very ambitious and will step in a pinch. These are the people who work the late hours in the office because the boss threw a last minute project on them, and they are very motivated people who will take on those last minute projects, who will take charge and who will complete it even beyond expectations from time to time because they know that they're a team player. They're the ultimate team player, basically. So obligers are people who feel motivated by meeting outer expectations. They also have a hard time saying no. They have a really, really hard time saying no. I suspect, I have not asked my husband to take this quiz yet, but I highly suspect my husband is an obliger. I thought my daughter was as well, but she turned out to be a questioner. She's 14. She's able to take this quiz. By the way, this quiz doesn't have a particular age requirement, so you may already suspect or want to play around with this quiz for different people in your life. So obligers are the ultimate team player, work really hard, are the ones putting in long hours, and have a really hard time saying no. And they also get frustrated because they aren't able to meet their own inner expectations for what they want to accomplish in their life. It can be a frustrating place to be. Now, what is the fourth tendency? The fourth tendency is the rebel. And fulfilling the circles of the tendencies, the rebel does not fill either inner expectations or outer expectations. What does that mean? My daughter, when she looked at that, she's like, well, what do? They don't do anything. They're kind of punks. Well, it's not that they don't do anything, and they're certainly not lazy people, but what they tend to do is self-sabotage. So even if there's something that they personally very much want to do, if someone tells them to do it, they're going to be like, no, that's it. I'm walking away. Don't tell me what to do. I'm going to decide what to do. So these are people who thrive upon choice. Do you want to do A or do you want to do B? And the more expectation that is put upon them from someone else, the less likely they're going to fulfill that expectation. Now, this is something that I personally connect with. I'm not a rebel. Well, maybe I'm a rebel without a cause. But I really resonated with this because I am notorious for, as a child, when someone told me what to do, hi, make sure to say hi when you join us. When someone told me what to do, like I had a pediatrician who said, you need to lose weight. I said, see you later. I don't need you to tell me what to do. So I had rebel tendencies show up in my life, even though technically my primary tendency is a questioner. So you may see elements of this regardless of what your primary tendency is. You may show elements of other things, like you might be a rebel but have obliger tendencies. It's kind of strange. So that's another thing I really like about this tendency quiz, is because it's what you tend to do. It's not putting you in a box. It's not saying you're only this and that's the only thing you can be and don't even look at the other things. No, we all have elements of all of the tendencies, but there are ones that stand out even more for us. And basically the divide between the four is the two over here. That's your upholder and your questioner will meet their inner expectations before they will meet their inner expectations. That's their primary baseline objective. And the ones over here, we have those obligers and rebels tend to meet outer expectations. Although the rebels is kind of like a wild card. They meet whatever they want to meet. I don't have any rebels in my life that I know of, but it must be a very frustrating place to be, to even self-sabotage in times of when someone is telling you to do something that maybe you do want to do, but then you're like, nope, you told me to do it, I'm not going to do it. Must be a very frustrating place to be. So what do these tendencies tell you, and how can they help you, really? I mean, how does this help you? Well, first of all, it's a self-awareness tool. And when I go through my planning process with my health coaching clients, self-awareness is the first primary objective of working with me. We need to understand what motivates you. And that's why I really appreciate Gretchen Rubin's Tendencies quiz, because it helps you understand what motivates you. For example, and it changes how we work through the process of working together. If you're an obliger and you find it really hard to say yes to what other people expect you to do, then you're a perfect fit client for me, because I'm going to set off certain goals for you, which we create together. But I'm going to be holding you up to those goals, and I'm going to be checking in with you during the course of our coaching together. I'll check in with you on these goals. I'm going to keep you accountable. That's the accountability piece of working with a health coach. So if you're an obliger, and don't forget to drop down in the comments below this video which tendency you are. Feel free to go take that quiz and pop in here and tell me what tendency you are. I shared mine. If you're a rebel, that could explain why you've had a hard time sticking to a health program, because health programs tend to be very structured, right? You do certain things, you eat certain things, you don't eat other things, you do certain exercises, you don't do other exercises. Typically, it's a cookie cutter kind of program. And if that's something that you have always struggled with, chances are good that you're a rebel, because you don't like being told what to do. You don't like being put in a template. You don't like having to check into MyFitnessPal to track certain things, because that makes you feel like somebody's telling you what to do. Even if it's just a piece of paper or an app, it's telling you what to do. So you might struggle with sticking to a very structured, very templated, not personalized program, because at the end of the day, right, you know what it is that you need or think you need. And being told what to do can sometimes send you in the other direction. What about if you're an upholder? Well, you would think that upholders would totally be able to accomplish any health goal they set for themselves, because not only do they meet their own expectations, but they meet outer expectations. Guess what, folks? Upholders have a hard time thinking outside of the box. If there's something that's structured and templated, they feel like they have to do that exactly in the order that it's done. What does that tend to do? That tends to put them into overwhelm. So they might be people who have started a program and got so overwhelmed doing all of the things, because if it's written down, if it's outlined for them, they need to do all of the things. That's how intense this feeling is, that they might give up, because if they can't do all the things, they'll feel like they failed, they're not meeting the expectations. And just depending on how strong their tendency is, that might encourage them not to continue, or to feel like it's not the program for them. I've had a lot of people who've come to me and said, well, I've tried everything. I've tried Weight Watchers, MetaFast, Slim Fast, Paleo, vegetarian. I've worked with coaches on the phone before through my health insurance program, and none of it worked. Here's the interesting thing about that. First of all, the one and only diet I did helped me lose 100 pounds, because I didn't follow a template, because I created awareness around what I was doing at every month and every plateau I was doing it. And because my inner expectations were helping me stick to the program even when I didn't want to. And most importantly, I didn't throw the entire program out if I wasn't getting the accelerated results I was looking for. What I see with a lot of people who've tried everything under the sun before is they tried something that was very specific, right? There were certain rules, they had to follow the rules, they had to check in so frequently. And if it didn't get them the kind of accelerated results they wanted, they threw the entire program out and started with a completely different program. Sound familiar? This is how yo-yo dieting works, right? You do the cabbage soup diet, and then you move on to the Weight Watchers plan. Both are very drastically different plans. And maybe, just throwing this out there, maybe that cabbage soup diet had some elements that really worked for you. For example, it's simple. It's not very complex. It focuses on veggies. It focuses on broth-based soups. You know, I'm just giving some examples out there. I'm not saying that you should try the cabbage soup diet. But if you go from that, which might have had some elements that worked for you, to a completely different program, Weight Watchers, I'm familiar with Weight Watchers, so I can talk about it. And that's a points-based system. You know, you click, you scan, and then you load it to your app, and then you check in with your community. It's based on not necessarily a low carb, it's more based on the fiber content versus the fat content versus the calorie content. And that's how they come up with their point system. Well, you know, that tends towards very heavily towards prepackaged and processed foods, because you can just click and scan and you know exactly how many points are in that product. I don't think it encourages too much homemade food, because if you make food from scratch, you have to kind of guess at what the points might be in that particular recipe. Or you have to turn to what the Weight Watchers approved recipes are, or bloggers that do provide Weight Watchers points for homemade recipes. So you're kind of stuck in a box, right? Literally, you know exactly what's in boxed and processed foods for your points, as opposed to the cabbage soup diet where you just cabbage and water and whatever other seasoning you do. That's a whole foods kind of plan. So, you know, totally different plans, totally different focuses. One is more complex than the other. What worked for me and what works for my clients is we start with the baseline. Okay, what worked? Okay, let's stick with those things and then add on those things. So upholders might have a really hard time not doing all the program, throwing things out, being very flexible and adaptable. That might be a struggle for them. So if you're an upholder, please share with me below here, because I'm curious. I want to know who's an upholder, for one. And for two, I want to know what was your biggest frustration with the last program, health program you started. Comment below this video. Now let's talk about questioners, because they're my peeps. I'm a questioner. What is a questioner's problem? Well, when it comes to health program, you know, there's lots of problems, but when it comes to health, what is a questioner's problem? Don't like fads. I had a lot of options when I first started my health program. I didn't have a lot of money, so it had to be cost effective. And I really was starting from scratch. So I had a lot of choices, but none of those choices appealed to me. Why? Because I'm the kind of person who wants to sit down and have a conversation with someone who designed the program and say, well, why are we doing this? Okay. And then why are we doing that? Okay. What's the purpose behind this? And it sounds exhausting. It is exhausting. Not for me. It's fun. But that's my process. I'll be like, okay, well, you have this program here and you say it's going to do this. Okay, well, I'm going to take what makes sense to me based on my previous experience, based on things I know, based on the significant amount of reading I've done in my life. I'm going to choose what makes sense to me. So this is a little bit... it's very, very subjective. So if I have some super fit person on TV who's jumping up and down like a kangaroo and saying, you need to start Beachbody, you need to start Beachbody and do it now, then I'll be like, why should I do that? Or I will think 2 steps ahead, because that's another thing that us questioners do. We don't just play devil's advocate. We also look a few steps ahead and say, oh, yeah, there's a hole in this process right here. But I might think 2 steps ahead, say, oh, after this 90-day program, what happens then? And then what? So, you know, we have so many questions that we literally can beat a program to death before we even decided to start the program. Yeah, done that. Or we start something and it sounds good and it convinced us, and then we start doing things. We're like, that doesn't feel right to me. Or we just overanalyze and overthink and don't take any action at all. So I spend a lot of my time in research gathering phase, you know, the data gathering. I'm an analytical person by nature. I'm a questioner by tendency. And I've taken a lot of financial service jobs, which required me to massage a lot of data. And I do that very well. It's a strength of mine, and I will always consider it a strength. It gets overwhelming, right? Analysis paralysis. I'll sit there and look at the data, and I'll be like, this doesn't look so good. That doesn't look so good. I'm kind of stuck, you know, option A and option B. I'm not quite sure which one is the best one. So, you know, questioners can get stuck in the what if phase, or don't have enough information to get started phase. If that describes you, please pop a comment below here and say, that's me, the questioner, and we'll help you figure out a way past this. By the way, I'm sharing this quiz with you because I think it's important for you to create awareness around what motivates you. That's reason number one. Reason number two, I can work with you no matter what tendency you have, because my process is just that. It's a process. I don't cookie cutter you. I don't overwhelm you with all of the things. We always focus on just 3 to 5 milestones during the course of our 6-month health coaching program. So I won't just throw like 20 different things at you, unless you're a questioner, and then I'm going to throw them at you, and we're going to have it out, right? We're going to discover which one of those things makes the most sense to you for you to implement. So, and the rebels out there who are like, shh, I don't tell you what to do. I'm not your mother. I'm not interested in telling you what to do. If you're interested in working with me, yes, I will hold you to certain expectations, but I don't tell you what to do. That's why coaching is different than consulting. I'm not a health consultant. I'm not going to say, yeah, you need to do X, Y, and Z, or you're not going to get results on this program. I have gotten results in 100% of the clients I have worked with. 100%. Based on what their particular goals were. So if that's something that is intriguing to you, let's have a conversation. I am accepting new clients right now, and I'd love to learn more about you, what your tendency is, what your struggles were in the past, so we can walk through this process of finding a path to body bliss. And I don't say that lightly, because body bliss is a big deal. And even if this is the first time you're hearing this, it's a huge deal, and it's really important, and I want to help you get there. Thank you for joining me live today. This is Jen Espinosa-Goswami. I'm going to pop the link for my scheduling tool below this video. No matter what your tendency is, I would love to hear from you, so make sure you comment below this video on what your tendency is, and if you feel comfortable sharing, that's for my rebels out there. If you feel comfortable sharing, then please tell me your biggest struggle with your previous health program. And if you feel so inclined, and what I've said today makes sense to you, for my questioners, then I encourage and invite you to apply for a complimentary, completely free, no obligation weight loss breakthrough session with me. We can talk about your tendency, and I'd love to hear more about what your tendency is. But more importantly, we can talk about how that tendency can fuel your best health and your path to body bliss just before the holidays. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Make sure to pop your comments below this video, and let's connect. We'll talk soon. All right, have a good day.